Hello and welcome to Drone On, the only podcast in the air and on the airwaves. I am your host, Bryce Bladen. And today I am joined by Mapster, the DePIN ambassador for drones and spatial data. Mapster, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. For those of you who don't know, Mapster is absolutely blowing up the LayerDrone Discord and community leaderboard. There are two forms of contributor tracking that the LayerDrone network does right now, the largest drone imagery network. One is RP, which is pilot tracking, and the other is XP, which is community contribution tracking. And the man on the call, Mapster here, is the absolute and I think up to this point unbeaten leader. I don't think anyone has technically outpaced you. Maybe on weekly XP counts, but not overall. You've been leading the pack for some time, but I think I've been talking about you long enough. Mapster, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how you got into drones and if you have time, DePIN.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Mapster. My real name is Sony, but I will refer myself to Mapster. That's how I know on X and in the community. I guess I started in drones maybe a decade ago, just flying for fun and taking nature videos, making after movies, usually like on vacations and stuff. So I was never really into the drone industry for in a finance sense. I was just doing it for fun. Then I got into crypto somewhere along the way and discovered DePIN. By the day, I'm like a hardware engineer, so I like all things hardware. Yeah, when DePIN, I saw like the convergence of blockchain technology and hardware. And, I was, since then, I think I got into Helium project first, and then I discovered a bunch of other projects. And I have a Tesla, and I call it the DePIN Tesla, since I have so many gadgets in there: Hivemapper, Natix, GEODNET device, rover, several devices. But I guess I would say Spexi or LayerDrone is probably my favorite DePIN now, or I would say it is the favorite DePIN because, I'm really passionate about drones and actually searched for a project that incorporates drone and blockchain technology. I think that's how I found Spexi. And I knew eventually you guys are going to spin out into the blockchain technology.
You mentioned the DePIN-mobile you got over there. Did that, there was a community campaign around showing off drone setups, and I'm pretty sure that did quite well. Did you win or only place in the top?
No, I think I actually won. I didn't think I was.
I think you actually
There were a lot of good drone setups, and I surprisingly won. I think that's because, the final voting was on Twitter or X, and, I kind of campaigned on Twitter, so I think I got lots of votes there. But yeah, that was fun. I'm waiting for my gear to show up. I'll be getting a shirt and then like a duffel bag. Finally,
excellent
gear from LayerDrone and Spexi.
Fantastic. Well, if you haven't guessed, the reason we are talking to you is because of your particularly unique experience as somebody who has been in the DePIN space for years now, but also the drone space. And LayerDrone is shaping up to be the community-oriented supply run side of this, is another way of thinking about it. And you are occupying a pretty remarkable area in that community. But what I'm really curious is kind of how you got there. Like, you've told me about how you basically were looking for the overlap of a drone project and DePIN. And candidly, I would say a lot of people who have been using Spexi, whether they're customers or pilots who are uploading the data, I'm not sure many of them would necessarily be aware that Spexi technically is a DePIN project, that it leverages the blockchain for data verification, that every flight has a non-fungible record or an NFT. Don't get me wrong, Spexi's not selling NFTs or things of that effect. But it is an example of how a lot of things are taking on blockchain functionality you may or may not notice, but also what that functionality may or may not empower down the line, which is something we are currently seeing with what Spexi is doing with LayerDrone, a nonprofit effectively founded to steward that network with plans to use a token to power it down the line. Now, what that actually means could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but Mapster here, I think, is the opinion I'm most interested in getting. So let me take it back to where I was starting from, which is, where did you start from? How did you go from flying and DePIN as a hobby to where you are now?
Yeah, I guess the crypto is the connection, like the link between going from hobbies to like being a provider. I guess my passions converged, and Spexi was the project I've been waiting for. Yeah, a lot of pilots on Spexi, I noticed, they are not really into crypto or deep in space, and they're not really on X where, most of the conversations happen. So I found myself in a unique position where I am I am in both worlds, and, I understand both sides, the blockchain side and the flying side. So I'm in it really, some people are really in for the finances. A lot of pilots, they do it for, they can earn passive income, not passive income, but they can earn side gigs as a pilot. So for me, it's about technology, being part of the forefront of this technology, drone and DePIN technology. So yeah, I think I'm in a unique position. I didn't see many pilots on Discord that understands both sides. So I'm here to be the ambassador and hopefully, teach or show people how more about DePINs. I would like to contribute.
Yeah, maybe let's talk about why people should, or whether they even should know more about DePIN. So it's a term we keep throwing around, and by this point of the show, you may or may not know it. DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. It's basically just crypto with a physical product tied to it in some way, shape, or form. One interesting thing about DePIN, at least in the context of Spexi and this conversation, is kind of what I just brought up, which is Spexi is effectively in an open beta. Now, I say that they've been a functioning business this entire time, despite being in an open beta. But that does also showcase that, it's not necessarily the final product or the vision realized. But one thing I did bring up is that the blockchain functionality of it, the crypto, quote unquote, isn't something people know about unless they know about it, which is to say the product works with or without it. And that's always been my principal theory on whether something should or shouldn't be a feature. Do I need to integrate this brand new technology? And one thing about crypto that is very interesting being a polite word for it, is that there's an argument that narratives need to exist beforehand, that you need everyone in the community and even potential people outside of the community to start to understand it, to reach a critical mass of belief or narrative or all sorts of different ways of interpreting it. And so in the context of this discussion, I think it's really interesting space that Spexi occupies, where they have all these pilots that are effectively like thousands of DePIN pilots. Yeah. And I would say you and maybe 30 others aren't necessarily aware of what that means. Yeah. So to just take this to the top of what I'm asking, like, how much does somebody need to understand DePIN to potentially benefit from it? Like, I know passive income was a real narrative in that community as far as like why DePIN matters. But yeah, what's your opinion there?
Yeah, it's a hard concept to understand DePIN if you're not coming from the crypto space. What is DePIN? Like, if I tell someone at work I'm in DePIN, they will make fun of me. I don't really like the word. I guess that I used to be called DePIN-mapster. I kind of changed, took that away. Just called myself Mapster because now I'm focusing on certain projects that are focused on mapping. But I think you don't really need to understand the technology much. Like the core team knows, how to integrate the technology. But I think from the side of a provider, you just map and you earn just like you would earn money, like you would earn in tokens. I guess the only learning thing would be how to work with wallets and, how to swap crypto. Those things might be the only learning thing you have to do. But technology wise, everything should be done by the dev team. So yeah, it's just, I think people will eventually come around, like pilots will understand DePIN, and Spexi is the ideal project for them to come to that understanding, I would say.
Cool. What does excite you about DePIN then? Like, why does it keep you in there as a hobby?
Yeah, I mean,
or an interest, even if you aren't willing to adopt the word to identify yourself?
Yeah, I have lots of different, DePINs. Like in front of me, I have the WeatherX and weather station monitors and different things. It's not, for me, it's not about making money, I guess. Like you would make money during like alt season when, all the tokens blow up. But I guess I like the technology and like I like getting into projects early. I know how you have to get into projects early to even really make good money, I would say. A lot of projects go away, but like the good projects have real use cases, like Spexi has use case, and there's some other projects like Hivemapper, Natix, they have they are solving real world problems. So also like, picking my own brain, like I'm interested in solving real world problems and in a decentralized manner. Like a lot of corporations are solving the problems, but I think crowdsourcing and giving power to people, that's the fastest way to do it. I think that's what Spex is doing. Like if Spexi were to just control it as a centralized entity, it may not, the network may not grow as much as, like coming up with LayerDrone and allowing the network to grow in a decentralized, organic manner. I think solving real world problems with people.
Yeah, to give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, when I was initially approached by Spexi regarding some of their Web3/crypto/DePIN/blockchain ambitions, the very first question I had is, what is the real world reason for why? And admittedly, it was a credit to the founders that they weren't annoyed with perhaps how I asked that.
Yeah.
But what I saw with Spexi was you guys seem to have a functioning business. At the time of this recording, it is 2025. This isn't the right time to launch a token and get rich quick.
Yeah.
This is actually a very difficult time to do that, regardless of how good of a project you have. But I've been in this space for a while. I've also been very critical of this space for a while. And the source of my criticism usually comes down to a few things. No real world application, no real world ability to scale, which are two separate things in my mind. And in my mind, no real reason for the technology to be integrated. So a lot of what you think of when you think of NFTs are probably examples of not hitting any of those. Spexi, on the other hand, has technically been doing all three this entire time. And to what you were saying around the ability to scale, that would probably be one of the primary reasons. Spexi leverages a network of pilots. We've got a few hundred active at a time. And that means that they all need to be paid. And the difference between Canada and USA alone for their work, or Spexi CFO having to deal with that, to say nothing of some recent tariffs that might have made that far more challenging process. But now apply that to the hundreds of countries on the world where Spexi wants them on what is now the LayerDrone network. Whatever your criticisms of blockchain technology, many of which are probably fair, whatever your criticisms of cryptocurrency, what the technology is very good at is having two people trade value with no person in the middle. But what I'm getting at is when you are trying to scale something internationally, when you are needing to pay people internationally, and when you are also needing to equate value to work that maybe doesn't have an explicit dollar sign, like you've mentioned how you need to be early to these projects a lot of the time to make money. And I think that makes sense from the same way why people, early on in a startup have disproportionate rewards to people who join the team, after Google is Google, because you built that thing up to that scale. So, the LayerDrone Foundation tracks people's contributions to date, not since the LayerDrone Foundation has been made, but since people have been uploading flight data with Spexi, which is years now. Which is to say, that's a lot of reasons why this may work for LayerDrone and Spexi, and that's very interesting to me. But excuse me, Mapster, you're the person I'm here to talk to. But I also want to be really respectful of your time. You've told us a lot about your experiences with DePIN and drones. I have a few special segments for you I'd like to run you through. But before we do that, how can people follow you? How can people follow up with you?
Well, I'm on Discord and NX. I'm pretty active. I think the username is still DePIN-mapster. It's DePIN-mapster. Yeah, you can find me on Discord or X. That's where I'm mostly active. And yeah.
Excellent. And before I take you over to the segment portion of our show, are there any last bits of advice or thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I guess to people who are thinking about joining the network, like pilots, I would say it's really easy to fly with Spexi. You don't really need to fly. You just need to observe the drone once it takes off. You just need to know the rules. US pilots have to get Part 107, which is probably the hardest barrier to getting in. But once you have that, it's pretty easy. You just show up to a Spexi and, drone takes off and maps. So I think the advice is mostly to people I saw there's a lot of people from the deep inside in the community. If you want to get into flying, it's really easy and, you should give it a shot. And the drones we use are not that expensive compared to other drones, and it's not expensive to enter. as a provider.
All fantastic, all true. I will be sure to include links to Mapster's accounts in the show notes, as well as a link to the Spexi app he mentioned as well. And the Discord you could probably find him in most actively is the LayerDrone Discord, where he continues to dominate the XP leaderboard on a weekly basis. That takes us from the topic of today's episode to what I find the most enjoyable part of this, the segments. So I have 2 segments for you today, Mapster. Do you have time to indulge me?
Oh, yeah, I have time today.
Excellent. All right. Our first segment is called Innovation or Idiotic. Now, I can't do this with a lot of people because I don't think they're quite as online as we potentially are. And I'm saying we in a way that might be insulting to you, and I apologize if so. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to share with you 3 startups. You're going to tell me which one is not real.
Okay.
All right. In 2019, a startup partnered with Walmart to deliver groceries via drone in North Carolina, but had to employ a human drone walker who literally walked beneath each delivery drone for the entire flight path to comply with FAA safety regulations. Innovation 2. Amazon filed a patent in 2016 for a massive flying warehouse, like that thing from the Avengers. Essentially a 45,000-foot airship that would hover over cities and deploy delivery drones like an aerial mothership, automatically restocking itself and repositioning based on demand patterns. Finally, in 2021, a startup called Quantum Drone raised $12 million for quantum-enhanced delivery drones that use sensors to predict optimal delivery routes by measuring microscopic gravitational variations in urban environments. Mapster, which of these 3 very real-sounding startups is not real?
Which one's not real? Okay.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, I'm thinking the Walmart one because that sounds too much like, a guy walking behind a drone. That beats the purpose. Could have just taken the package, I guess. But the other 2 are out, like really out there. But I feel like, people are thinking about it because I think about these kind of stuff too, where, having drone delivery, like having a mothership delivering other drone swarms. I think Amazon's doing that, and Quantum Drone, yeah, sounds believable, but I need to look more into it. So maybe the drone walker, not true.
Well, unfortunately, as much as it would make so much sense for the drone walker to be the delivery person, that is unfortunately a real thing. A startup called Flytrex partnered with Walmart, but FAA security regulations mean a drone can never be out of sight of its pilot or carrying something at that time.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Now, this is to say how far things have come. There are actually companies in the States that have gotten beyond line of sight and over the horizon clearance for drone operations at scale, which is a very big change in the past few months at the time of this recording. So, very nice choice of guess. It gave me an opportunity to drop that news. No, the fake one was Quantum Drone. Okay. And I think what maybe made that seem real is I didn't say quantum as much as I possibly could. I don't know enough about quantum mechanics to say why that seems fake, but gravitational variations.
Oh, yeah. I missed that part, I guess, the gravitational variation.
Well,
it could be true.
I'm frank with you, Mapster. I can absolutely see Quantum Drone raising $12 million in 2021. There was nothing wrong with you getting that wrong.
Working at a national
It's
lab,
society that's wrong.
Quantum technologies has been thrown out a lot, so I was like, okay, maybe we're there.
A lot of money's been thrown at it, too.
The next
all right.
After this DePIN thing.
Okay, we've got one more segment for you if you've got time for it.
Do it.
All right, now we are going to play our parody distinct music to introduce this one, which is called The Bryce is Wrong. As you may know, I am your host, Bryce, and the format is roughly the exact same. You have to figure out which of these 3 stories about me is untrue, and today's topic is crypto.
All right.
Bryce's first DePIN experience and product was a cat sculpture. Second, Bryce used tokenization to launch the world's most expensive sake. 3, Bryce has made a lot of money thanks to selling his NFTs.
Interesting.
Which is true. Which is false. Only one is false.
Only one is false. Okay. With the cat sculpture, did you mean DePIN or NFT?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I think maybe that's wrong. I would buy cat sculptures as an NFT, but I don't know if there's a DePIN or was the DePIN, but you're unique, so maybe you got into that. So I would say, well, I'm going to say that's not true. And one of them is true. You probably made a lot of money in NFT, or hopefully you took the money out.
Two of them are true.
Two of them are true. Okay. Yeah, well, the cat sculpture is probably not true, and the other two are true, since you seem like an NFT person. And the third one sounds like an NFT project too.
All right. Well, close enough, I feel. I think I misspoke calling it a DePIN experience. You are correct. It's more of a physical NFT project. I am referencing Crypto Kaiju, who did create some limited edition CryptoKitty physical cat sculptures that also doubled as crypto wallets that could potentially connect, which was the infrastructure part. I don't think, how should I put this? The decentralized and physical part is true. The infrastructure aspect, might have been reaching. No, actually, and what is maybe most interesting here is I have not made a personal cent from selling NFTs in and of themselves. I helped found one of the world's first NFT companies when I drafted the white paper for ERC 721, i.e. the first mainstream NFT, but I actually donated any money I've had from selling NFTs. It's not as much as it sounds like. I've just kept on most of them. Treat it the same way I treat my friend's arts. It lives in the house or in a wallet somewhere.
Well, I got into NFTs at one point, and with all the rug pulls, I bought a lot of there were a lot of rug pulls. But my cousin did make money, but well, he lost value, so it was on paper.
It was the most confusing time of my life in 2018 when people would ask me for investment advice. And then it was the second most confusing time in my life in 2021 to 2022 or so, 23, when there was yet another NFT cycle of people asking a guy with a creative writing degree for investment advice. My advice, don't invest in NFTs as an investment. Buy an NFT if you want one, but treat it like a video game.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, Mapster, thank you so much for taking part in our award-winning segments and for taking time on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, but thanks for having me. And yeah, looking forward to LayerDrone and what the future brings to the project.
Absolutely. Thank you again, sir.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Drone On. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to get a new episode every week. And leave us a 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. You can learn more about our sponsors at Spexi.com, that's SPEXI.com, and LayerDrone.org. Find out how you can contribute to the world's largest drone imagery network too. Thanks again for listening.